Why does someone go through a breakdown, quit life, and end up in a hospital? And how does this relate to the prophet Ezekiel? A real quick disclaimer here. This is true for the cases that I have known and may not be true for other people who've gone through this. Now, some of you know what it is to feel like your life is coming apart. Not all at once. More often, it happens in layers. A job changes, a marriage falls apart, a body weakens, a friendship ends, a role disappears. The thing that used to tell you who you were no longer holds. And then beneath all the practical losses, there's a deeper pain. Who am I now? I talked to two people recently who experienced what the mental health professionals call a breakdown. Both had the same story shape. Their marriages fell apart, their jobs fell apart, being taken away unjustly. Their lives quickly came undone. When I brought up losing identity and compared it to Ezekiel's life 2,700 years ago, one of them admitted that during the breakdown, they kept asking one question over and over and over again: who am I? Now, that's not a small question. When major loss piles up, especially losses tied to identity, role, and status, people often report feeling like they don't know who they are anymore. Psychologists call this identity crisis. It is a period of profound uncertainty where the person's sense of self becomes unstable. The reason is simple. Most of us build our identities around our roles, our relationships, our work, and our sense of usefulness. My friends did. We are workers, we are spouses, we are parents, we are providers, we are respected, we are needed. And when those roles are stripped away, we lose not just a job or a relationship, we lose the story we tell ourselves about who we are. But here is what I want to tell you today. This question, who am I? It's not new, it's ancient. And the Bible gives us one of the most powerful examples of it in a man named Ezekiel. Ezekiel was in training, 5 years away from being a priest, and that was not just his job, it was his world. And in his world, being a priest was everything to him. It was his calling, his status, his future. He was supposed to serve in the temple in Jerusalem. That was his identity. And then he was taken into exile in Babylon, 11 years before Babylon destroys Jerusalem and the temple. He lost his future dream. He lost his home. He lost his temple. He lost his place in the religious hierarchy. He lost the city that had defined him. He was now a refugee in a foreign land, separated from everything that made him who he was. And the loss was not only personal, it was national as well. In his world, the temple was the center of Israel's identity. It was the place where God's presence dwelt among his people. So Ezekiel was not only living through his own dislocation, he was living through the dislocation of many of his own people. After he and many others were deported, two distinct narratives grew. For those who were taken, hopes and prophecies of a quick return surfaced. But for Jerusalem's leaders and many back in Jerusalem, another narrative developed. One that blamed Ezekiel and the people like him who were taken into exile. Being exiled was a social and a spiritual disgrace. If you were forced away from Jerusalem, far from the temple, far from the center, you were cast off by God. Even for those who were taken, that narrative was not easy to dismiss. So Ezekiel would have had to live not only with his loss and the losses that I've mentioned, but with that shame. How did he deal with this? How much did he struggle with it? With the suspicion, with exile, and worst of all, with the question of whether he still belonged to God at all. That is why this story is so powerful. It does not hide from the deepest fears of the broken. Because some of you are not just sad, you are disoriented. You're not only hurt, you are identity shaken. You used to know your place. You used to know what you were building. You used to know how to explain yourself. But now it feels like the ground under your feet, the ground under your life has split open, and all you can see is what is disappearing. If that is where you are, hear this clearly. You are not broken beyond repair, and you are not alone. Sometimes what feels like a breakdown is actually a stripping away. The roles, the titles, the structures that once held your identity together are gone. It is disorienting, even terrifying, but it may also be where something deeper is beginning. Then came a long silence. At least it did for Ezekiel. 5 years passed before God gave Ezekiel a new calling. 5 years before the vision that changed everything in his life and in Israel's life. 5 years before Ezekiel saw the glory of God leaving Jerusalem and realized that God was not only tied to the past, not only tied to the temple, not only tied to the life that he had before he was taken. God was with the exiles here in Babylon, in the place where they actually were. That's the turning point. Ezekiel's vision did not simply tell him that God had left Jerusalem. It confronted him with a deeper truth. Life was no longer going to be built around what used to be. It was going to be lived where he now stood. The past could not be restored as if nothing had happened. The calling was not to rebuild the old world. It was to begin again in the land of exile. Ezekiel's life did not return to what it was. It couldn't. The temple would fall. Jerusalem would burn. The identity he built for his future was not recoverable. But his life was not over. It was redefined. 5 years in captivity, 5 years of losing his past. His dream of becoming a priest was gone, but God gave him a new direction in life, one that he hadn't expected and hadn't planned. In the year he was supposed to begin ministry as a priest, God called him to be a prophet. And that shift tells us something essential. There's a difference between recovery and reconstruction. Recovery ties to the back, to the past. Reconstruction builds forward to the future. God is not confined to the life you lost. He is present in what remains. He is able to build meaning out of what feels like ruin. Ezekiel did not get his old life back, but he was not abandoned either. He was given purpose again, different but real. Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That blessing is not for the put together. It is for those who have been emptied, those who know what it is to lose their life, the life they thought they would have had. The two people I mentioned earlier both walked through that kind of loss. Both faced the question, who am I? And neither one of them stayed there. They rebuilt. And both are thankful for the lives they now have. This is Ted. Please like and subscribe. And comment too.